About 2 years since I've made a video, but I'm back. As you can see from the title, this is my story slash testimony type of thing. For starters, I just want to say I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. This is my life. This is what I went through, and I feel comfortable talking about it. And I also feel the need that other people should feel comfortable about talking about the things that they've been through. And if anybody has any questions, comment down below because I am definitely willing to answer some questions. I'm not going to say too many details, but I just wanted to give a good gist of my story. So I'm going to start off young, clearly. From what I remember, I was don't remember age, but I was not in kindergarten yet. I remember I was at a house party with, I'm just going to say relatives. I don't want to be into too depth about certain things, but it was over relatives' houses, and we were both young, and all I remember is that relative touching on me, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like 4 or 5 because I wasn't even in kindergarten yet, and I remember that person's mother coming in and taking me out of the room, and next thing you know, I heard crying, and I'm just like, okay, is that bad? Because clearly I don't know what's going on or what's happening, so I didn't know if it was good or bad. So the next incident happened within like a year later, and it was a different relative. That other relative ended up showing me, I guess, more into depth with like pornography. I don't know if I'm able to say that, but yeah, pornography. And they would play like a truth or dare game with me, and it'd be like, oh, I dare you to pull your shirt up, like very like dirty questions. And I was probably in kindergarten to first grade at this time, so I'm still not knowing if this is good or bad because clearly my parents or nobody else has told me anything about these things that were happening to me. So I was letting this happen, and so since I'm thinking it was a good idea, I decided to do it on another relative closer to me. Like, I think I did it to two other relatives because it happened to me twice. So I did it to them. I showed one of them pornography, and it it got deeper. And then I tried to act out certain stuff that happened to me onto that other relative, not knowing that if it was okay or not. And I remember my third grade year was when I switched to my second elementary school. I went to three elementary schools, so I moved 3 times. So it was my second elementary school when somebody told me about the stuff that was happening to me was bad. And the fact that it was happening to relatives made it even worse. So at that point, I'm like, okay, this is bad. I shouldn't be doing it. So right then and there, I'm like, okay, this is bad. I shouldn't be doing it, whatever. I just let it go, but it came back up to me further into the years. I'm going to speak on that later. But at that time, I'm young. I just let it go, third grade, whatever. So I stayed at that school for 1 year. I wasn't having really any problems during, from being a kid up until my fourth grade year when I moved to a different elementary school. And when I got there, I got bullied about my teeth, about my hair, about the way I dressed, just a lot of things. They called me bucktooth fever, just a lot of things that mellows a person down, that doesn't make them happy. And I would go home and I wouldn't really say anything to my mom besides, oh, I need braces, I need braces. And she was just like, your teeth are fine, you don't need braces. And I'm just like begging her to get braces because everybody was just making fun of me. And I remember this one time, I don't know if it was fourth or fifth grade, but this one girl just wanted to fight me, I think because of how I looked. And I just remember running away, and everybody called me a track star because I was, what I'm saying? Like, all of this is happening to me, and I'm not knowing what's going on. Mind you, I grew up in, I guess you could say, a middle class household. I wasn't poor nor rich. So that has something to do with it, but yeah, I just wanted to put that in there. But, fourth and fifth grade, getting bullied all the time, and I think that's really just the gist of all of elementary school, because I think when 6th grade came, that's when I got my first phone, and things started to, I guess, go downhill. It was a whole bunch of drama. I had just got my braces. People were still talking about my teeth. And then things started to happen in my household. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I have a stepdad, or had a stepdad. I'm the oldest of three other children. I am 20, but I'm not going to disclose, my other siblings, but I am the oldest, and the other three kids were his kids. I was the only one that didn't have the same dad as them. So automatically, I felt like an outsider, but not up until I got into middle school because I am their oldest child. So clearly, they're learning, I'm learning, you know, whatever. So a lot of drama was going on throughout my middle school life. And when I was at home, my mother was just tending to my other siblings, and, there wasn't really much time for me. So I would want to always go out with my friends. But my mother, I wouldn't say she was strict, but she would be like, when I was a kid, like she would always bring up the past. Like when she was a kid, she didn't do this, she didn't do that. The world has changed, this, whatever. So during those years, I wasn't able to really go anywhere unless I was like in drama club, or what else did I do? I did track. So that was really most of the only times I was really able to be out, besides like this one other, or like two other girls that I was like best friends with at the time. Um and then yeah. So coming up to, I guess, I think it was like 7th grade year, was like my first big incident with my stepdad. Like, we didn't get along all the time, but it wasn't like any like big outbreak. So I remember I hung out with a cousin or something like that. We were out of town, and I wasn't communicating with my mother. So, she got upset. She wanted me to come home, and I wanted to spend the night. Just like, little stuff. And then I ended up coming home. She took all my electronics, and, I wouldn't say I was depressed at the time, but at the time I just felt like all my anger from like me getting bullied those past years, just being a little kid and just going through stuff. I'm just like, oh, like I want to pass away and all this other stuff. And they were like, why would you say that, and yelling at me. And I just remember my stepdad pulls me over to the door, and I remember my mom being behind him. And I don't I don't specifically remember because he said he didn't choke me, but I just remember one hand forcefully just going up like this, and then I'm up against the wall high up near the door. And he's screaming in my face, cussing at me. And that was like the first big incident I had with him. Like, he's never gotten that angry around me. So I was just like looking at my mom, like, you're gonna let him put his hands on me like this? Because, like, they never really put their hands on me like that. Like, yeah, I got spankings, but it wasn't like something as forceful. So I got my phone taken away for about that summer, I think, or something like that. But when I came back to school, it was 8th grade, braces were coming off. I was thinking everything was going to be cool. Um, like, backtrack to, like I said, my mother was always tending to my siblings, and I felt the need that, like, I personally felt that she wasn't showing me enough love because I was already thinking I was an outsider, and then situations with my stepdad just wasn't adding up. So I felt the need to get closer to other men, or other boys per se. I would spend time talking to them most of my days instead of really talking to anybody else, because I felt that, end quote, felt that they loved me more than my own mother, because it was just like at least they were showing me attention, like, yeah, she was feeding me and stuff like that, putting clothes on my body, but that's what you're supposed to do to a kid. But fast forward, high school, um 9th grade, I got suspended, and I think that was the year I was starting to get depressed. I have committed suicide twice. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but let's see, got suspended, got into a fight, just like little stuff. And that was like just a whole bunch of stuff that I was going through in middle school. Like I had a lot of guy friends because I just didn't really get along with females. Like a lot of people thought that I was messing with all these guys when the real thing was I was just their friend. Like I don't know. It was just a whole bunch going on, a lot of names being called towards me still. So I was still getting bullied in high school, which people try and be like, oh, everybody gets bullied, but bullying isn't a good thing. I don't like the fact that everybody thinks that it's okay to get bullied or it's okay to bully. It shouldn't just be a normal. It shouldn't just be a norm that, oh, you get bullied, that's it. No, we should be teaching kids or teaching ourselves that we shouldn't be treating people this way. So, because like it has damaged me over the years that I had to work on myself. So, I'm going to fast forward to when I got kicked out, I'm going to say, because I just want to get like to the main details. I don't want to, say too much. But let's see. I think it was about senior year. COVID hit 2020 and I graduated in 2021. So we were virtual my senior year, and I remember it was the first week of school, and there was an incident that night before I got kicked out where I had went outside and I told my mom I was going outside to talk to somebody out in the front yard. And I guess I don't know if she forgot or didn't remember or whatever, but she was like, you could have got kidnapped, whatever. Just a whole bunch of stuff, and we got into an argument, and that's when my stepdad was just like, you need Jesus, you need this, you need that, there's something wrong with you, and just like saying just a whole bunch of whatever. There's more stuff, but I don't like I said, I'm trying to like simmer down. If you guys have questions, you may ask. But there was just a lot of things that my stepdad would come to me for and then turn around and say it's bad to my mother, and then I would get in trouble for. Or just like a regular sibling thing where I would be the one getting in trouble for my siblings' acts, and that's really the gist of it. But that night before, it was like a whole argument. I was smoking marijuana, so they told me not to smoke it anymore. And that was fine. I was just like, okay, that had nothing to do with the next day, but like they were just like having this whole argument about, saying the marijuana was messing me up, but they didn't know I was smoking marijuana for 2 months until I told them that week prior. So they didn't know anything was like, they thought I was normal, and then now they were saying I was messed up. So whole time they just need to find an excuse to downplay me, I guess. So that day I got kicked out. My great grandmother was already in the hospital, but I remember I was in virtual class. Class ended at like 3:55, and she was like, "Hey, if you get these assignments in, da da da, you can get extra credit." And I'm like, "Bet." So I go downstairs and I'm like, "Hey, can you guys sign this? Extra credit. I gotta get it in by 5 o'clock." So about like it's gonna take like an hour, 30 minutes. It was just like three papers that you had to put a signature and date on. So it wasn't even gonna take 5 minutes. So my mother was like, look, I'm about to leave. My dog had to go to the vet or get a groom or something like that. I don't really specifically remember, but I just know that she was leaving with the dog, and she was like, I'll be back soon. Get your stepdad to do it. So I was like, look, can you sign this, please? I'm begging him. And he was like, look, I'm gonna wash the dishes and then I'm gonna see. And I'm like, okay. So I go back upstairs, I'm minding my business, and I'm like, all right, 10 minutes before I have to turn it in, I'm gonna go downstairs and see if he signed it. He's sitting at the table on his phone. The papers have not been touched. So I'm literally sitting there begging him. I'm like, look, like, this isn't a field trip. This is just, signatures for like the code of conduct and like simple stuff like that. And it's like, you can't even sign it. And he was just like technically trying to start an argument with me, like, no, what's the point? I'm like, it's for school. Like, why wouldn't you sign it? So I had a lot, like I said, I had a lot of anger built up with like the sexual trauma and all the other stuff. Yeah, it was just a lot. Um, oh my gosh, y'all. Yo, I literally skipped. I skipped the part. So I apologize. A month prior to me getting kicked out, Sorry. I don't know how you can forget something like this. I got raped. Um, yeah. I try to put that, as you can see, I try to put that in the back of my head because I don't even remember like the whole thing on how it happened and stuff. I just remember hanging out with a friend, hit this guy up that, I didn't like him or anything, but he was the plug at the time. Like I said, when I first started smoking, it was 2 months prior to me getting kicked out. He was the person I was getting it from. And I think it was in August, got kicked out in September. So I remember being intoxicated and just going into his house, laying down, and then I don't know if I'm able to get into too much detail, but I don't want to get into too much detail because I don't know if I'm gonna get flagged for this. So just know I'm thinking it's something else when it was, and I just remember having just drips down my body, and I'm like, what was that? And I turn around and he's just trying to like hurry up and pull up his pants, and I'm just like I didn't know what was going on. I'm just like, what? Because I'm still intoxicated. I'm just like, what is going on? And then he's like, let's go. And I'm just like, okay. I get home, wake up the next morning, and I'm just like, what just happened? And then I had to call him, and I was like, did we? He was like, I don't know, did we? Like, and that just made me know right then and there, like, yeah, so that happened. Let backtrack to the day I got kicked out. Sorry about that, guys. I had went outside and I called my granddad and I'm like, look, like and it's like the simplest thing that can make things so traumatic. It's so crazy. But call my granddad, I'm like, he's not signing the papers, and he's like, okay, I'll call your mom or let me know when your mom gets home. I'm on the phone with my godmom when I get off the phone with him, and I'm crying and stuff, and I'm just like getting overwhelmed and just stressing myself out even more about just everything, because when I get upset, I start to, at the time, I would think about everything, even if it wasn't bothering me at the time. Like, I would start thinking about that sexual trauma or like me getting bullied and just like little things and details that happened in my life, and I just overwhelm myself more. So, and nobody taught me how to work on that, which I have now, so that's good. And there's nothing wrong with being in tune with your feelings. It's just when you're upset about that one thing, just be upset about that one thing. Don't overcomplicate it and be upset about other stuff. So I remember my mom finally getting home and she's like, what happened? And I'm like, he hasn't signed my papers. And she's like, well, he had an attitude anyways. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, what? An attitude. I'm like, okay, I apologize. Can you sign it? Whatever. Like, I don't even remember having an attitude. Even if I did, like, it was no harm. So, like I said, I was very, upset at the time. So I'm like, look, like, it's already past 5 o'clock. It doesn't even matter anymore. And then it started to become even more problems where I had my right ear pod in. He comes up to me and he like snatches it out, but like he grabs my entire ear, like he goes like this and clamps it and rips it out. And mind you, his big man hands, so it hurt. So I'm like, ouch, like, can you not touch me? Like, you don't even touch me, we don't even hug, so why even put your hands on me? He's like, you're not listening to your mother, this. And I'm like, first of all, I paid for that. Like, if you wanted me to take it out, you could have asked. Like, you didn't even say anything, you just came up on me and you took it out. So he comes around the table and he's trying to like hug me, or like, I felt it was groping, and I'm like, get off of me, get off of me. And he's still touching me. And I'm like, I'm going to call the cops if you don't get off of me. He was like, call the cops. And I see my mom had the house phone and she hid it like underneath her pants. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to go find the other one because we had two house phones. So I go into the living room, no house phone. I come back into the kitchen thinking that the house phone is in the kitchen. And he runs up behind me, and like I turn around and we're face to face, and he whispers in my ear, and he bends down. He's like, if it wasn't for your granddad and your mother, I would have been put my hands on you. So right then and there, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't know how to react. All I remember is he ran to the table, sat down, face got red. My mother turns around and I'm like, do you know what he just said to me? And she's like, no. And I was like, I repeated what he said. She was like, he didn't say that. And then he's sitting there, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What are you talking about? So I'm just imagining things now, you know what I'm saying? So she was like, you know what? You need to leave. You're getting kicked out. And I'm like, okay. So I go upstairs into my room. Literally an hour later, while I'm packing my stuff, trying to figure out who's picking me up, my great grandmother passes away. They get a phone call that she passed away from COVID. and all I hear is crying, and I'm just like, all of this is going on. My grandmother just died. Like, what? So literally, I end up getting somebody that's able to pick me up. They end up picking me up like 2 hours later. At the time, my stepdad went to sleep around like 9 o'clock because he worked mornings. So he was in the room, and I didn't know what was going on in the house because I was stuck in my room. I locked my door. Yeah. So the ride got there. I went downstairs and I turned to my mother and I was just like, I love you. I'm sorry that it had to come to this. And I turned to the door and I try and unlock it. She runs to the door and she's like, "Where are you going? You're not leaving unless your granddad's getting you." And I'm like, "You literally kicked me out the house. I don't feel comfortable being in here, especially since my stepdad has a gun and he said he would have been put his hands on me." So I don't know how angry he can get because I've seen his anger the first time in seventh grade. So I don't want to witness this again. So I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable here. And she's like, "Well, you're not leaving." So I go to the back door and I'm opening up the door. And then she just starts screaming and pushing and slapping. And I'm just like this with like my 3 bags on my body, just trying to hold myself together, trying to get out the door. And my sister underneath me, she's like, "Stop, just let her go." She starts crying. Everybody's crying. My stepdad's still asleep. And you got to think about it, like, there's 2 other children in the household that's witnessing this. So it's like I didn't want to put my siblings through that either. So it's just like, why not just leave the situation? I felt it would be better so I wouldn't have to keep dealing with it and arguing with it because I don't like to just let things slide because there's always going to be some type of resentment or some built up something that needs to get out, and I don't want to get that out when I'm in full rage. So I end up leaving. I go home to my grandparents' crib, and then everything kind of like dies down for a little bit, and then eventually we only started texting unless it was something important, like about school, taxes, financial aid, like important stuff for like my clothes and stuff like that. And my grandparents kind of wanted to know the situation, and I told them. They didn't believe anything that I said. They didn't believe that my stepdad acted like that or that my mom acted like that. And I told them more into detail about like how it was throughout the years, how they've treated me and stuff, like with the siblings and everything. But they didn't believe anything I was saying. So nobody was believing me. Everybody thought that I was just some bad teenager sneaking out the house and doing this and doing that. But in reality, so yeah. Um After that, I think my mother would sometimes text me, like, not like bad. Well, yeah, she would be like, "Well, I'm glad he put his hands on you because I would have done the same thing." Or like some like slick things like that. Like she would actually say that to me. And she said more. I took screenshots because my phone ended up breaking. So I have a whole bunch of like receipts on like the things that she said to me. But fast forward again. I'm almost close to the end of the story, guys. It's almost over. But like I said, I was leaning on guys because I didn't feel loved at home. I didn't feel loved by my mother. My dad didn't say anything about my real dad. My dad is still in the picture, but he was kind of like, I couldn't see him all the time. So our relationship isn't close, but it's close. I'm more comfortable talking to him more because I didn't grow up with him and he didn't really like discipline me per se. But I ended up meeting this guy my graduation day. Went to college for a little bit. I was depressed very much. I tried to commit suicide before I graduated by taking a couple pills, and I remember being in my room just rocking back and forth, not wanting to be here. And I think that was either before I got on medication. I started taking medication for insomnia, anxiety, and depression. I had a therapist. I had a therapist and I had a psychiatrist. Um, I had to take that medication every day, and that medication numbed everything. Like it numbed my feelings. It numbed, like, I just felt like I was queen of the world or something like that. Like I felt like, oh, nobody can hurt my feelings. Like that's literally how I felt. Like I felt like I was really, like there was no emotion. And I didn't like that either because that's when, fast forward, I met the guy I so-called fell in love with, and I didn't feel the love. So it was like I liked you, but I didn't like you because it's like of the medication. So I ended up stopping to take the medication. I stopped taking it September. I went to college in August, and that was the worst. I was even more depressed because I didn't have a roommate. I was in a room by myself. I didn't have any friends down at college. I was almost 2 hours away from home. So I was depressed. I mean, I don't know really how else to explain it. I was like, crying about being lonely, even though I wasn't lonely. I was just alone. And then I would like question my religion and question society because when you're like that, you start to question everything. It's just like, what is this? Why am I here? Um, and that was kind of my point. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in school anymore. I left and I moved in with my ex boyfriend now. He's my ex boyfriend. And I was paying rent. He cheated on me. Well, I don't know you guys' definition of cheating, but he was flirting with other females, texting other females, and all this other stuff. And I just let it slide. I would tell him about it, but it clearly he didn't care because he did it all the way up until I moved out of his house in March. So he had two brothers in the household, a mother, a stepdad, and one of the brothers had a girlfriend. So it was like six of us, seven of us, and four dogs. So I'm living there, I'm paying rent. I'm getting blamed for dirtying up the house when I'm literally in the room 24/7. I'm dealing with him cheating on me. I'm dealing with my mother not condoning the relationship, but still kind of like disowning me, grandparents disowning me. It was just a whole bunch of family problems. And like I said in the past part, I was like, when I think of one thing, I think of everything else. So when I'm going through one thing, I start thinking of everything else, and all of it kind of like flowed into just like straight depression to the point where I remember walking away from his house, going all the way. I think we walked like 3 miles. I walked like 3 miles away from his house, trying to step foot onto the road to get hit by a car. Like, that was my ending point. And after he was literally holding, my ex-boyfriend was holding me back, but when we got back to the house, I was literally on the phone with the suicide hotline. Like, it was that bad. Um, but his brother, I really don't like exposing other people's business, but this is also my business because I had to have a restraining order out on him because he pointed a gun at me, he threatened me. It was just a whole bunch of things that he was doing that, yeah. So, sorry guys. Yeah, sorry. And just thinking back and like all that stuff is just so crazy, but I'm so glad I made it through that and I'm over it. But yeah, he threatened me, he threatened his entire family. But he also told me that I was the cause of him taking medication, uh, which had him going crazy. He went to jail like once or twice. He went to jail twice in the hospital once, but they bailed him out every single time, and he came back doing the same thing, didn't change. And most of the time, like when he would lash out, we would have to go to hotels or we would have to go to, one of his other relatives' houses to stay because he was that insane. So that was like draining me. I was trying to work, trying to deal with that, trying to deal with family. It was just a whole bunch going on at that time. And then eventually my birthday came up. That was the day he finally left. Like, we were dealing with this from December all the way up until February 22nd of my birthday, ongoing. And the mother came into the room and she was like, if I were you, I would have been left. And I'm like, wow, that shows how strong you are because, honey, I've been so strong through that whole entire thing, and it was just a lot. So I finally got the last straw with my ex-boyfriend. I'm like, look, you just cheated on me on my birthday. That's sad, and your brother just left. And then the end of March was when I left because I think he ended up linking with another girl or something like that. I don't really know the specifics, whatever, I don't care. I got into an argument with the mother. She ended up calling the police because she ended up arguing with my ex-boyfriend and he wasn't leaving. She took his keys. It was a whole bunch of back and forth, a whole bunch of arguing, a whole bunch of her slashing my name and slammering my name, calling me, all types of stuff. And eventually I got all my stuff up out the house and I left. And after I left, that was really like my end point. Like, I after I left, I didn't go to my grandparents because like I was clearly not talking to them really. I had gotten to a program. I don't want to say homeless, but I've told people I was technically homeless for a week. I was living in a hotel by myself. Because I needed to get my mind straight from all of that stuff. Like, during that week, I was thinking about every single thing that happened into my life. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do forward? I've already tried to commit suicide twice. I've already been through this. I've already been through that. What are we going to do with that? So I decided to just man up. And I was just like, you know what? You have a life out there. You have big things to do, big dreams. I'm multi talented. Um, I do a lot of stuff, and it's just like, why throw all that talent in the trash? And I thank God every. Why am I gonna get emotional after the fact? I thank God every single day. God, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I didn't think I was gonna cry. Like, that was doing so good because I've been over the situations. Because I can sit here and talk about it like it didn't even happen, even though it did. Because I let go of my past, but God has been there for me through and out. I've I've sat there even during situations just praying and listening to gospel music, and even at my lowest. I'm not gonna say I'm at my highest right now, but even at your highest, you should still be praising Him. I'm not a Christian, by the way, but I do believe in God, and that's my rock, y'all. But yeah, He has helped me through everything. He helped me stop smoking. I wasn't a drinker, so the only addiction I had was smoking, and He helped me stop smoking. I've been how many months free of smoking? Been a minute. So I thank Him every day. I'm just gonna say I keep thanking Him. I keep thanking Him every day. But I just want to end this by saying, no matter what you go through, you're gonna get through it. No matter what you go through, you're gonna get through it. And I want to sit here and tell everybody to open up about the things they've been through. I didn't go through straight hell though, like I've heard people go through worse, but some people couldn't withstand the situations I was in. I was strong through and through. I know people that have been through little things and would seriously commit suicide right then and there. But I've stood strong throughout the years and still working on myself. And I just wanted to express this before I continue to do the things that I want to do in life and continue to make videos, because I want you guys to know the worst part, the bad, the good. I just wanted you guys to know what exactly brought me to who I am today. So that's how I'm gonna end the video. It's your girl Masani Lay. I thank you guys for listening and watching my video. I hope you guys come back because I will be posting every week. Thank you guys.